It seems like a big problem. Like I said, many people, particularly millennials, Gen Z, see it as a problem that's running away from them that can never be solved. And you're pretty adamant and convinced that Bitcoin is a way to solve this problem, not only for the end consumer who's inevitably going to buy a house and leverage its utility to house themselves and do other things. Maybe they have land, they want to build a farm or something like that, but also on the development side to make sure that you can actually build these things and do it in a way that's efficient from an economic perspective and allows you to prevent potential default, considering the amount of time it takes from initial capital injection to construction and then eventually finding people to actually live in those homes or those retail commercial real estate properties.
No, for sure, for sure. I quickly maybe just elaborate on why I believe that Bitcoin can make housing affordable over time, and then I'll go into details of how real estate developers can utilize Bitcoin to stay competitive and to continuously provide housing to the market. So if you think about it, number one, if you hold Bitcoin as an individual, things become cheaper because Bitcoin is scarcer than the monetary supply. That is quite simple, right? Things become cheaper over time if you hold Bitcoin. And secondly, because Bitcoin is a superior store of value, I can imagine that going forward, especially the generations that you talked about, millennials and these generations that came after, they will naturally be inclined, I believe, to prefer using Bitcoin to store value because, there are digital generations and it's more accessible. And that most likely will result in people preferring Bitcoin to store value over real estate, which results in less demand for real estate. And then thirdly, and this is also something that will connect to your question, as a real estate developer, you have a problem. So because of inflation, yes, the nominal value of real estate increases over time because of increasing demand, but the construction costs go up as well. So what you usually do as a landlord, you increase rents to increase your profits, because if construction maintenance costs go up, you want to make up for that and you increase rents. But by utilizing Bitcoin as a store of value, by incorporating Bitcoin as a store of value within the real estate world, real estate developers and landlords are less dependent on raising rents to counterbalance inflation. And I think it's a pretty good example of how Bitcoin can benefit both the entrepreneur and the consumer at the same time. And something that I believe is a sensible strategy is what you just mentioned, is that, of course, you can use Bitcoin to build maintenance reserves if you own property already. And you can also refinance that property to buy Bitcoin. What I believe is actually a very good strategy is that for every new development project, a good idea is to include Bitcoin in the financing of the project. So let's say you want to finance a project and you take an additional loan amount and you buy Bitcoin immediately, and you hold Bitcoin in the same entity that's going to construct the real estate project. Once the real estate project is finished after 5 years, Bitcoin will most likely, right, Bitcoin will most likely gone through a halving cycle, right? Because we know, historically speaking, every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin that's being distributed to whoever successfully orders and adds a block to the time chain halves. And with less supply and actually demand that stays the same, price goes up over time. And because price goes up over time, demand goes up, which then creates this speculative bubble in the bull markets that we know. And this really helps the real estate developer to protect against downside risk. Because what often happens is, and I can share a personal story. So recently we finished a project after 7 years, but we wanted to finish it after 5 years. So the problem is, once we had the financing from the bank, we had a building window of 5 years. But it took us a little bit longer. It also meant we needed more money because in that time frame, because of COVID, the cost for wood went up significantly, by like 40%. That meant the construction cost of that project went up. So we had to go back to the bank. We had to ask for more money. We had to take out more money at higher interest rates. And that cost us a lot, basically. But ideally, if we would have bought Bitcoin when we started the project, after 5 years, those Bitcoin would have increased in purchasing power, and we could have ideally lent against those Bitcoin at a favorable interest rate that we would have maybe been able to fix at the beginning of that loan. And we would have protected us against that downside, because Bitcoin increases in purchasing power over time as the monetary supply increases. And that would have allowed us to lend against that Bitcoin and then fund further construction. And so Bitcoin can really help you as a real estate developer to protect yourselves against downside risk and to build creditworthiness within your company, which is very, very important in the real estate business because it's so capital intense.
Hey, you, do you still have your Bitcoin on an exchange? Don't hold your Bitcoin on an exchange. Take it into self-custody. If you're looking for an easy way to do that, we have the BitKey. BitKey is Bitcoin made easy to use and hard to lose. Take the first step, get your Bitcoin off the exchange. Check out the link in the show notes. That'll get you 20% off your BitKey, or use the code TFTC20 at checkout.